Hey, my friend, this is Mike, and let me ask you, what are you afraid of today? Now, I'm not talking about the general fears that many of us have. You might say, well, Mike, I'm afraid of spiders. Well, so am I. I'm not talking about the general fears. I'm talking about those specific fears that we have right here today, right now, given the circumstances that we're all in, locally, nationally, across our state, across our world. What makes you afraid? What keeps you up at night? What causes your steps and the pace of your life to slow a bit because you're just afraid? What causes your steps to stop in fear? It's real. So what is it for you? It's unique to all of us. What is it for you? What are you afraid of? I ask that question for you to identify that fear because the good news is that the Lord meets you and he meets me. He meets us in our unique fears. I'm reminded of the story from Matthew 14 where the disciples were in a boat on the Sea of Galilee, and it was being buffeted by wind and waves. And Jesus wasn't with them. He was on the shoreline. And in Matthew 14, starting in verse 24 and following, in verse 25 in particular, it says, during the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. Meanwhile, this is a lake that's being storm-tossed, and the disciples are afraid. When the disciples saw him walking in the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked in the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You have little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." The good news in this story is that Jesus met the disciples in the midst of their fear. As they were afraid of Jesus coming to them, they thought he was a ghost. They were terrified, it says. When Peter was sinking and he's afraid, Jesus met him there. He simply cried out, "Lord, save me." And Jesus reached out his hand to Peter and pulled him up out of his problem. And then when Jesus got in the boat, the winds stopped. Jesus didn't wait for the winds to die down and the waves to die down before he came out to them on the boat. Jesus navigated the storms that were buffeting the disciples' boat, that was making them afraid, and they got even more afraid when they saw him. He moved through their fear, and he came to them in their fear, and he gave them courage. "Take courage," Jesus says. "It is I. Do not be afraid." So, my friend, what is making you afraid today? And my friend, know the good news that as you are afraid, as I'm afraid, as we are afraid in our unique fears today, our Lord is coming to us in this moment to speak deeply into our hearts and minds. Do you hear him saying to you, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." He's not waiting for the fears to die down. He's coming to you in the midst of them. He's walking through them, and he's offering the courage that he has to you. It's as if he has courage. He's saying, "Take courage. Take the same courage I have that's moved me through this storm. Take it. It's for you to take freely. Take courage," Jesus says. "It is I. Do not be afraid." So, my friend, do that today. Take the courage the Lord offers and move through this time of fear with greater courage. Hope this has been an encouragement to you. My friend, it's been a pleasure for me to share this time together. And may the Lord bless you and keep you always.